Hey guys, so we're back, and this time to work a bit more on again and a bit more on that final pose that you guys may remember that I did in last class after the running cycle, okay? To connect a running cycle or a walk cycle to an animation, because we're gonna need this in the parkour assignment, okay? So let's redo that, and I'm gonna redo step by step so you guys know exactly how it works, whatever I'm doing. Cool. So let's go. First thing, I will select the ground controller. In my case, it is done and it's muted. So if I check here, my translate Z, let me bring the graph editor. My translate Z, it has a first key and a last key in different positions, so it's moving forward. But when I scrub, it's not moving forward because it's muted. You guys remember the muting thing, right? So I will right click over Translate Z and I'm gonna unmute selected. Cool. So as I muted, it's now moving forward. In my case, I already did the adjustments to the feet, so they're not sliding or maybe sliding just a little bit. Anyway, it doesn't matter for now. And so let's keep going. So first thing, I'm going to change the number of frames to 50. Okay. Again, this is my is a different version, so probably different from yours. Um, but changing this to 50, it allows me to have two cycles and then a final pose. Okay. To do the two cycles, I'm going to do the following. I want this ground control to move forward, of course, but I want it to stop eventually, okay? To do my final pose. And I know two cycles. Uh, one cycle has 19 frames, and 19 is the first frame of the next cycle as well. So the next keyframe would be 37, okay? So if I go to my graph editor again and check here, because of the infinity, I don't have keys here, but my curve keeps going on and on and on because of the infinity as well, right? The post infinity is on, and so I keep going on and on and on. And what happens if I add a key here in frame 37? Well, let's see that. I have translate Z here selected. You don't have to do this, but anyway, I'm gonna hit S and it created a key actually in the same place. Let me do it again in a different way so you guys can see better. I'm gonna change this view to absolute and then you're gonna see perfectly what happens. So I remove that key, I undo the action, and I'm gonna do it again, okay? I'm in frame 37. I have Translate Z selected and I'm going to hit S. So it created a key right there, right? But Maya creates keys using by default the auto tangent, which is this one. So this tangent here, if I select it, it's set to auto. And I don't want auto in this case. I want this to be linear. So it will come straight to the key and it will keep in a flat line. Okay. For this one, I don't know where you change it, but anyway, I'm going to change it back to spline because I want it to come straight from before. Cool. So now we have a Z movement that keeps going in the same speed, and it suddenly stops at frame 37. And if I play here, you're going to see that this is going to happen. So it stops at frame 37. Okay. But the cycle, the rig is still moving. And why that? Because we have, let me select everything. I will select the whole rig and I will deselect the ground controller. And then, yeah, you see that a lot of keys They happen from frame 1 to frame 19, as they should, and they keep going because there is a infinity with cycle on, and it happens before because there is a pre-infinity with cycle. Okay, and what we're gonna do now? Well, um, I want this cycle to happen 2 times and then stop. Okay, so what am I gonna do now? I know my animation starts on frame 1 and I want it to finish on frame 37. So first thing, I would turn off the pre-infinity. Okay, I can do this using again the pre-infinity option. Sorry, curves pre-infinity. So I will do this using the pre-infinity option, and I will go to the default, the standard from Maya, which is constant. Okay, so let's select constant. So everything before, there will be no animation before the first frame. And I want to do the same for the after frame 19. So you go to curves, post infinity, and constant as well. Cool. So now I have only one frame happening. Let me zoom out and you guys will see. So frame 1, I hit play, it does one cycle, it stops the cycle, and the ground control keeps moving until frame 37. Cool. That done, we will keep all the controllers selected. So we'll select all of them, make sure that ground control is not selected, and then I will select all the keys. And how do I do that? I hold Shift in my keyboard, I click and drag. Make sure that even frame 19 is selected. So you go until frame 20 here, and then I will right click, copy, and then as my frame 1 will repeat on frame 19, and I copied my frame 1, so I go to frame 19, not 20, I go to frame 19, and then I right click and paste. So the animation, whatever it is in frame 1, will overwrite frame 19, but as it's the same pose, there's no problem with that. And right now, if I go to frame 1, where is our guy? Here. If I go to frame 1, it makes 2 cycles and stops at frame 37. So now we have the start for our transition to animation. We have both ground control and the body animation working as we want, okay? Just to make sure, I'm gonna go to frame 37. I'm gonna select everything and hit S just to make sure that it is, um, I got everything keyed, okay? And now, what am I gonna do? Why did we go until frame 50? Because I want this animation to finish on a different pose, okay? So I want our guy to finish in a pose like this. Maybe standing, maybe opening the arms. It's up to you. Maybe falling. I've seen some of you guys make her guy fall. I'm gonna make, as you guys, as you saw in the class that I did a simple pose, I'm gonna do something more advanced now, okay? There's no change on the tools we are using. I'm gonna use the same tools, I'm gonna use the same stuff, but I'm gonna make just a little bit complicated, okay? So let me key everything on frame 50. I don't need to key the ground control anymore, so you guys don't have to select it anymore because it's not moving anymore. From now on, whatever I have in my animation, we are not touching the ground control, okay? Just so you guys know, when we do animation, this is not mandatory, it's not so hard on it, but we usually, you can consider we're not animating the ground control, okay? We only animate the ground control for cycles that we want something to repeat. So we use the ground control as how much the character will move around, okay? So the animation keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, and the ground control is the amount that is moving forward or rotating or whatever. Anyway, but for regular animation in a way that it's not a cycle. For every other animation, which is the majority of animation we do, we don't animate the ground control. Okay, we do everything with the rig itself. Oh, but if I need to animate the rig to walk forward like 3 steps doing something, we use the hip, we use the feet, but we don't touch the ground control. Okay, let me undo this. Okay, right, so let's keep going. I'm gonna do a pose. So sorry. So I want to make a pose, let's say like this. I'm gonna build my pose here. Okay, you guys uh, did yours, so I'm gonna do a quick pose here. I'm not going to fancy doing it because I don't want to waste time. Sometimes it's easier, just so you guys know, like this spine. I'm not sure I want the spine like this. I want a different pose. So what I do is I select everything, like all the translates and rotates, and I hit 0, so it gets back to neutral, and then I can do a new pose, not worrying about what I had before. Although this pose is very similar to what I had before. Anyway, sometimes it's good to zero everything out. I'll make a humble guy just checking his nails after doing a cool thing. Again, I'm not going too crazy. I could make these fingers a lot better. Cool. I think this is good enough. Okay. And after doing my last pose, you will see the animation will transition from the last cycle pose automatically to this pose. And this, of course, is absolutely boring. So we want to create more poses in between, okay? We're going to start with a key pose in between. I want a passage pose for this. And I'm going to make this, I'm going to go to the next level, okay? I'm going to do something that it may, it will definitely actually help you guys with the parkour assignment. When you guys work with your parkour and your blocking poses, you're going to have to think about spinning and looping and things that will happen to your character. Okay, so I'm going to do this here, and you see how I do this. In this case, I did my final pose before doing this key pose. In your parkour, you're gonna have the chance to do a key pose here and then the next key pose. So this is all gonna be easier for you guys. Okay? But anyway, let's do that and you guys will understand what I mean. So for this pose, I want our guy to make a jump and a front loop. So I'll bring the hip up. We'll bring the spine in a way that's similar to a front loop pose. Let me set the heads to 0 and rotate it. The foot would do something like this. And remember to rotate the hip, rotate the feet, rotate everything in the same orientation that a front loop would do. In this case would be clockwise, right? Yeah, so if I have, let me undo this. I have the foot here. So I don't rotate this way until I get the pose I want, because this is gonna mess up with everything we're gonna do in the future. So I'm gonna rotate it this way, the same way the foot would rotate in a front loop. Okay? And I'll do the same the other foot. So we would rotate this way. That's what I do. The arms, I use 0 out. It's easier to work with. And then I rotate them. Same thing. Let's open a little bit of the fingers. Yeah, again, nothing fancy. Maybe I could make the guy grab the legs, but I will not waste that much time right now. Okay? Okay, so after finishing the pose, you guys will see that um, going from frame 37 to frame 43 makes some sense for a front loop, right? But going from 43 to 50, it doesn't make that sense. And why that? Why the front loop is not completing? Because we didn't do the whole front loop rotation to go to frame 50. Okay? So what we're gonna do now, how can we do this in a way that it works? So there's different ways to do that. We can use the graph editor and we can use the viewport itself, rotating the controller. Okay? I'm gonna do using the graph editor first. So let me bring it here. Let me select rotate X, which I know is the rotate to front. And you see how frame 37, then it rotates a lot, like upside down. Um, in this case, is almost 90 degrees. And then it rotates back to 0. Okay, so it's almost 0. It's 0.131. What I want here is the rotation to continue. So from frame 43 to frame 50, I actually want this to go to 360. Okay, so I can move it up until 360. What I can see here in the graph editor, it's almost 360. I can see here as well, 362. And I can see, of course, in my viewport, which I can adjust if I want. Cool. Now, at least for the hip, it will make more sense. The jump, I'm going to make this better. Okay, so the jump, and it keeps rotating until there. Forget the legs for now, the feet and legs. So the hip will make sense. Cool? Yeah, so let's do the feet now. So from here to here is correct, but from here to here, we have to fix a lot, right? For the legs, I will do the different thing that we can do, okay? First, I'm gonna make sure that I have everything selected here. I hit S again, 43, and in 50 again, just in case. So the pose in 43 is a locked pose. The whole rig is locked. And 50, the same thing. So I have the blocking poses for 43 and 50. And for the feet, I'm going to use the viewport to keep going. Okay? So I'm going to create an in-between pose, in-between key, only for the feet, right? So let's go, for example, to frame 46. I'm going to select the blue foot, and we can follow that the blue foot, it's moving in a different way, okay? Let me do this to make our work easier. I'm going to copy the pose that we have and 43 for the blue foot. And then I'm going to go to frame 46 and I'm going to paste our pose. So it goes back to that position, right? So in 43 and 46 is in the same position. And I know in 46, the foot should continue going and continue rotating. So we would have something like this. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for the red foot. I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to 43. I'm going to go copy and 46 and paste. Then I'm going to select and move and rotate to the right position. Okay, again, it's not too adjusted. I'm doing quickly so you guys can understand. So now from 37 to 43 and 46, it's making more sense, right? But for 46 to 50, it's gonna make a mess. And why that? Because again, The rotation is not correct from 46 to 50, so we have to make it work. I think the most important thing is understanding the logic behind the poses and right rotation and position. So I think you guys now understood how the graph editor works and how moving the viewport work is just two different ways of doing the same thing. So as this is very complicated for the poses, I'm going to use the graph editor for this final adjustment. Okay, so I know rotate X in this case. I'm going to select again the blue foot. I know rotate X at the end is set to 0. So in 46, I'm going to select the rotate X here. And I can see my graph editor, it goes up to 250 around-ish. Yeah, 251 point something. And then it goes back to 0, right? But I want this to continue rotating until we reach 0 again, but not 0, but 360 instead. So I'm gonna hit 360 here. Okay, I'm gonna change this back to auto. Okay, so in terms of rotation, the foot is doing the correct thing. Okay, I don't even have to worry about. And the red one should do the same thing. So rotate X, 43, 46, bring 43, bring 46, and going back to 0. So what I want here is going to 360. So when I hit 360, the pose is still the same. Let me hit 0 here. If I change from 0 to 360, it doesn't change anything in the pose, the viewport, but it changes the graph editor, and it also changes how much it rotates in the scene. Okay? So yeah, there we go. We still have adjustments to do, like the arms, for example, but our hip and legs are doing a very basic but correct movement. Cool? So let's keep going. Let's keep going with the arms. So the arms in 43 are correct. And when I go to 46, I should continue the rotation because these arms are set to follow, not follow the spine. Sometimes you work with rigs, they usually do this, that follow the spine, okay? When they are in FK mode. Uh, those ones are set to follow world. So I can rotate the spine. The arms will not rotate. The arms will keep as they are because of this option. Local world is set to 1, and 1 is like on. Off would be 0. Okay, so yeah, let's continue rotating the arms. I'm not doing 100% correctly. I just want this to make some sense. Actually, I'm gonna select everything, and I'm gonna create another key pose. So I hit S in 46. So in 46, I'm gonna adjust everything actually. And let me fix the head. The head has actually a rotation in the blue orientation. You see, this blue one. And it's also set to follow the world. So I had to make the rotation continue. If I am in 43, it's correct. And then I start going, the head keeps looking in that direction. So what I have to do in 46 is keep the rotation like this. And you see in the graph editor, the curve continues going up until the point I want. And then when we go to 50, we have to fix the curve the same way. So it makes sense from 37 until 46, but it will make a mess until 50. So what I'm going to do in 50 is I'm going to select rotate Z to see better the curve, and I'm going to move from right above 0 to right above 36. That's I can move it until it's in a position that I want, and then I can, of course, manually adjust it. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, it's making more sense. The red arm's going crazy. Both arms actually are going crazy, so we're gonna have to fix this. Okay, cool. Let's see what's happening with the arms. It's probably this blue curve. I know this because it comes on a sequence that makes sense, and then it starts going up the curve, going up, up, rotating a lot, and then it goes back. And I don't want it to go back. I want this to continue going until it reaches around 36 or around a position I want. Okay? Same thing for the other shoulder. So I select the shoulder, I select rotate Z, and I move this to continue going to make our curve continue go until a point that makes sense. And this makes sense, I'm looking to the viewport. Cool. So let's see how it goes. 37, loop pose. It's kind of a mess around 45, 44, but it makes sense, the rotation. Okay, and then it keeps going. Kind of a mess as well. I have to fix this, but the rotation makes sense. And there it is. Cool. So what we did here was making the controllers follow what they have to follow in the rotation department. Okay, and now we're gonna adjust all of this. So we don't want some poses to happen. We don't want some things, some animation to happen at that timing. So we're gonna fix all of this. Right now, if I select all the controllers, I have a key pose in 37, I have a key pose in 43, another key pose in 46, and another key pose in 50. And I feel that, let me see, yeah, I feel the pose, the timing is good from 37 to 43 to 46, but I think it's too fast from 46 to 50. I mean, the landing, I would need more time to land and go to this pose. So what am I gonna do? Uh, First, let me create more frames here. Let me add more frames to my animation. I'm gonna go to 70. Okay, so for now, he will stay in the last pose, but I want this to, from this pose to this pose, I want more time. And here, I'm gonna teach you guys one thing that is very cool in animation. Uh, I want this frame 50 to happen after. So what would be the first thing you guys would think about this? Well, you can shift click on 50 and move this, right? But let's say you want to move more frames, not only 50. Let's say we want to move 43, those three keyframes. We could also select this and move them, right? What happens here? So I have more frames, so more time from 37 to 49 now, okay? This would make the beginning of the jump and the loop lower, right? One thing that we usually do this, a tool that we like for this um, is the following. I'm going to right click in the time slider. Then I'm go over the option keys. Okay. Oh, it's not recording this part of the screen. But anyway, if you click, if you right click in the time slider and you're gonna go to the option keys, it's gonna open a new menu, and you see this new menu has a bar over it. Like when we when we go to any sub menu option like this one, let's say go Windows, animation editors, and I have this sub menu. I can click in this bar, this dark gray bar over the sub menu, and it will pop out. So I have the sub menu here for to use as many times as I want, right? It makes life easier. So I'm going to do the same for the time slider. So right click on it, go over the keys option. It's going to open a sub menu with a few options, and then you're going to click on the dark gray bar over the sub menu. In my case, it's going to open this. I know my mind is 22. I know 24, 25, they have more options, different options, but we're going to use only these two, add in between and remove in between. And what is this? Think like our animation um, is think that it's possible to add or remove empty frames whenever we want and whatever we want actually. So I have this space from 37 to 49, and I'm going to click in any empty frame here with no keys, and I'm going to remove in between. Doing this, I'm removing empty frames. So all the keys I have to the right side of this frame, selected frame, will move left because I'm removing frames from here. Okay. Again, I have everything selected. I have all the controllers selected. If I have just one control selected, it will change only the only controller selected. Okay. So it's good to have all of them selected. So when I do this, when I add in between or remove in betweens, it will move all the key poses. So we're not going to lose the key poses. So let's say I want to bring this back in a way that this first keyframe will come back to 43. So I click on frame 43 and I remove in betweens until the key got there. Okay? If I want to add more time, if I want more distance here, like I said, I want to make frame 50 happens later, I go to frame 48, which is an empty frame, and I just add in between. So this key will move right as much as I want. And from frame 46 to frame to the last pose, now frame 58, we're gonna have more time. Okay? I think this looks cool. If I need more adjustments in the future, I will do. But why do we need more time here? Now it looks slow, like from the front loop to the final pose, it looks kind of slow motion. Yeah, but I want to create a new pose in between. Like I don't want him to land in this pose. I want him to land in a different pose. Okay, so I'm going to create a pose here, and let's say 54. And if I need it, I would change. So I have everything selected. I hit S, and I'm going to create a pose here. For this pose, I want the feet to be already in the final position. So this is when we start moving things in different timings to have them the way we want. So I'm copying the poses from 58 to 54 for the feet. Okay, it's a bit early. The hip, it's kind of high. So I will move the hip around here because it's coming from a front loop. Yeah, and this is what I want. So I want the feet to get before in the ground. Yeah. So I'm gonna adjust this pose in a way that imagine would make more sense because he wants to go to the final pose. And I do not want the final pose right now. I want a landing pose. So I'm gonna adjust this a little bit. I'm gonna create an in-between pose actually. I'm gonna select everything, hit S, and make a whole key pose. And I will do like a pose that someone that is landing from a front loop maybe would do. Again, not too polished, very simple. I don't want to waste time on this. I just want you guys to understand how it works. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to create another in-between pose. I will select everything. I'm going to go to frame 56 and I'm going to make a like a reaction to what would happen to the hip, what would happen to everything. Let me copy this foot and paste here. What would have to happen to everything while landing? Just fixing the fingers. Back to pose 56. Yeah, now it's making more sense, right? I don't like too much the timing. It's too kind of, the jump is okay, but it's too fast at the end. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna select everything again. Then I think the jump is okay. Let me see the from frame 46 to 54. It's a bit slow, so I'm gonna remove keys from here, empty frames. I'm gonna remove two of them, okay? So the pose is still there. All the poses are still there. They are just happening faster or slower between them. From 52 to 54, I want more time. This is too fast. So I'm going to add two in betweens. And from this to this one, I want it to happen really slow. So I'm going to add a lot of in betweens here. Okay. Now it's making more sense to what I want. I think this could be a little faster. So I remove one key from here, but I'm going to keep adjusting. And then we can, as I have key poses, each frame of this is a key pose, so I have all the controllers keyed, then I can adjust this in the future. So when he is going for the final pose, from this pose to the final, I want things to happen on a sequence, but not too boring like this. I want things to happen like this. I want him to stand up first, so I'm going to key everything here. Now let's go here, 59. So I want him to first stand up, not rotating too much. I want the spine to be more straight, not rotating as well. I want the arms to be more on a neutral pose. And I want the head to look forward. So this would be a pose in between, right? Let me change a little bit. In this pose, I will rotate the hip a little bit accordingly. So I want the whole patient in the green orientation, which is rotate Y, to make more in-between rotation. So I want I want this key to be between those two. So it will be something like this. And I want the spine to do a similar thing. So I will select the rotates. I will move the green one to make a halfway path between the other two. So he will go up kind of halfway what he's done with hip and spine. And I'm going to do the hip go up not so fast as well. So translate Y, I will bring down a little bit. Yep, so this is similar to what I want. Cool. Another thing that I want is create a different pose because I want the arms and the head to happen in different times. So I'm going to keep this pose 59 as it is. I'm going to move 55 a little bit forward, so I'm going to add in betweens. I'm gonna even add more frames here to 90. And I'm gonna create another pose. Hmm, let's say in 64. Oops, here is 90. So I'm gonna hit S in frame 64 to create a new frame. And what I'm doing here in 64, at this frame, I want him to bring this, to have this arm already in the final position. Okay, so I'm gonna select the shoulder, the elbow, so shift select the elbow and shift select the wrist. And I'm gonna copy the last pose to this pose. So in frame 64, we already have this. Cool. And in frame 64, I want this arm to be more similar to this one. Okay, so I see the shoulder. I'm going to select the shoulder in frame 64. I want it to be more similar to frame 59. The shoulder is not changing too much, but I want the elbow to not move too much. So when I select the elbow, I see the rotation, the blue and the red ones are moving too much, and I don't want it. So I'm going to bring down, and I'm going to break down. Yeah, so this is what I want. Same for the head. I don't want the head to rotate that much in frame 64. So let's see what's happening to the head. Probably this one. Yeah. So I'm bringing it down to make it more similar to frame 59. So the head will keep looking forward and then we'll look to the side. Cool. Let's see how it goes. Yep, it's getting there. We can do still a lot of adjustments to make this timing more cool, but things are happening the way we want. Okay? And this is a thing that I didn't talk in class, but you guys are allowed, of course, to do and able to do, which is from frame 37, the last frame cycle, to the first loop cycle. You can definitely adjust this. So, and I want to adjust this way. Uh, First, in frame 37, let's start by the most important stuff. I want the hip to start rotating. So if I select the hip, I will see the rotation in X. The red one here is yellow because it's selected, but I want it to start a little bit. So I'm going to change this to auto. I want something like this to happen. Okay, some rotation. The spine, the same thing. So if I select the spine, the rotation, the red rotation, this one, I want it to start as well. So I'm gonna change here. Notice that I'm changing the last frames of our cycle, okay? And when I do an animation, when I go from a cycle to an animation, I obviously can do that. That's why we turned off the post-infinity cycle and we copied the keys and pasted them. So we are able to change the keyframes from this part. Okay, so what else do I want? Let me see the feet. I always start by hip, and maybe spiny head, and then the feet. So the feet are, yeah, the red one is not bad, although I want something more exaggerated. So if the foot was here in 34, I wanted to do something like this. The next frame something like this. Oh, I'm gonna bring closer because there's a pop. Let me fix this pop. In the hip, I can also fix a little bit of the translates. Yeah, so I can see this one. I can make something like this because it makes more sense for this curve. Okay. I will also change this to make more sense. And let me fix the foot now, the red one, because I changed it the hip. So I want to adjust the foot. Yep. The blue foot now. I want the blue foot and to do something like this. Uh, this frame is cool, 33. And 37, it's kind of preparing to the next step, but it's not going to have a next step. So I want to do like a superhero pose. And yeah, making sense. And you know what? I'm going to change the landing a little bit. Instead of having the 2 feet like this, I'm going to select the red one and I'm going to bring here. So he is landing with 1 foot. Yeah, not the best. You still need adjustments, but yeah. There it is. Let me show on the other side because he is turning to the other side. There you go. So this is how you adjust things to happen in different timing and make it more realistic. Okay. Actually, for a front loop, we would still need to do some adjustments for the arms, especially. Like this is not how the arms would do. Let me do this so for you guys that will work on a jump on the front loop, you can make those adjustments. So a front loop, the guy would probably raise his arms to use them to gather energy for the front loop. So it would be something like this. Let me do this a full. There we go. I'm going to create a plane here. Yeah. save this, and there it is. Very basic animation, again, not polished, not finalized, not fancy in a way that I adjust the details, but I want you guys to understand how things work to change the timing of stuff happening, how to go from a run cycle or a walk cycle to a real animation. Dealing with the ground control is the most important thing. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys are having fun. Cool. So let me post this. Cool. Thank you guys.